$100,000 in student loan debt or more, $600 car payments, or tens of thousands of dollars in credit card balances. These are the scenarios that we see every single day. Maybe you can relate to some of it. It doesn't have to be this way, guys. You don't have to enter into your 30s with this hanging over your head, which is why we're coming in today with the ultimate financial advice for people under 30 years old. Stick around. So if it's your 30s that are considered the most formidable years of creating wealth and making the biggest strides financially, then it's safe to assume that your 20s are really the years that are the most critical at setting yourself up for those strides for financial success. Today I want to go through 7 of the most ultimate pieces of financial advice that you can start using throughout your 20s to make sure that you're prepared for massive success in your 30s. Number 1, and most importantly, your biggest financial asset is you. Never ever discount or minimize just how valuable you, your time, and your talents are. Most people in their 20s often shortchange exactly what their worth is. So being aware of what your worth is early will help pay off in dividends later in life. Number 2, be sure to use your debt correctly. Debt can be one of the most powerful instruments to creating wealth through proper leverage. Unfortunately, so many of us are undereducated in this area. So being certain that you're using debt the right way is critical. When it comes to credit cards, be sure that you're only using credit cards when you can pay them in full every single month. Not only will this have a tremendous positive impact to your credit profile, meaning that the banks will want to give you access to additional funds, but you can also earn a remarkable amount of rewards over time that will indirectly affect your cash flow, either through travel points, cashback, or additional points that you can use to purchase gifts or holiday presents for people, but paying them in full is key. I would recommend avoiding the trap of 0% introductory periods. Many lenders, banks, credit card providers will issue low to 0% promotional periods for a short period of time, whether it be 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 months, at which point they're just hoping that you won't have your balances paid off by that expiration point, and they'll retroactively penalize you for all of the interest that you otherwise would have been paying through that period. So be sure that you're only using credit card accounts when you can pay them in full. Secondly, student loan debts. Let's talk about that. I feel very strongly that unless you have a clear path, you need to reconsider whether or not now is the right time to get involved with post-high school education. College education is not for everyone, especially if you're unable to afford it. Going in and taking out massive student loans is only going to set you back years and potentially even decades. In fact, I just recently had a coaching session with a couple who has $247,000 worth of student loan balances. This is a couple that's in their early 40s and mid 30s. This is going to haunt them obviously for decades to come. And I see day in and day out people who have student loan debts that they are contending with for years and decades at a time. If the banks get what they want, remember, you'll stay in debt until you die. Number 3, set big goals for yourself. Guys, make sure you're shooting for the absolute perfect lifestyle for you. Whatever that looks like. If that's $100,000 per year, make sure you're setting that goal. If that's $1 million per year, set that goal. It's important to always be chasing big goals. Now, the only way goals will become reality is if your behavior matches the conviction that you have. So you always want to make sure that you're repetitiously following a proper intake of information and exercising through experience in order to get the conviction and motivation to stay consistent. We talk about that in a recent video as well. So be sure to look for that as well, how to change or rewire your mind. There's another video that we teach which talks about how to be honest with yourself. So one of the most important things when you're setting proper goals is understanding for you what type of life you want. What is it that you really want? Not what do your friends have and what did they want and what looks appealing on the outside or through social media. Who cares about the best of people's lives that they're posting to their Instagram accounts? At the end of the day, this is about you. Really sit down and be honest with yourself. Be honest with your partner or your spouse about what it is that you desire in life. And the moment you become truly, authentically honest with yourself, you can begin to reverse engineer the steps necessary, not just every year, but every month and every week and every day that you need to be taking in order to get that much closer to what it is you're trying to achieve. So set big goals and be very realistic about, under worst case scenarios, at what point does what you're working on not make sense to pursue anymore. The fourth is a direct dovetail from setting big long-term goals, which is to set realistic small goals. And these are those small steps that I was talking about that allow you to then achieve that big picture down the road. These small goals are really, really essential to your success. And oftentimes, short-term needs can outweigh long-term goals. If you have very limited cash flow today, perhaps achieving a 7-figure net worth is going to be much more difficult over a 10-year period of time. If you have higher cash flow, you'll end up being able to achieve longer goals or bigger goals over a long time. So the key is really being realistic about your long-term big goals, but creating those small baby steps each day, each week, each month, and remaining as consistent and patient and courageous as possible in order for those to become a reality. So the fifth ultimate financial insight for people under 30 years old is to stop measuring yourself against the success of people around you. Now, I want to kind of explain this one because there's both good and bad to this. The first piece is, there's nothing wrong with appreciating success of people around you. In fact, I think one of the best things that you can do is to surround yourself with the right folks. It's said that somebody can be defined by the 5 closest people to them. So be sure not to surround yourself with people who are rescue projects for you. And this is something I had to learn. And quite frankly, I didn't really learn this lesson until within the last few years. I was a big rescuer and wanted to kind of bring people up to my level. Now, I make it a point to only surround myself with people that I am the lowest man on the totem pole. And I think that this is a great way to learn. This is a great way to create relationships where you're getting advice and coaching from people that you don't necessarily even need to pay, but build relationships with people that you bring mutual exchanges of value with. It's very important that you come to the relationship bringing value if you want to expect value. However, the downside of creating relationships with people that are far more, or even just slightly more successfully than you, is there tends to be this temptation to become somewhat envious or jealous of that person. That can be one of the biggest mistakes you would make because you're always comparing yourself, and then you have that voice in your mind chattering about not being good enough or that they're better than you, and it's simply that keeping up with the Joneses aspect that can significantly harm you financially. If suddenly your friend is upgrading their vehicle and you feel a sense of obligation to do the same before you're ready, suddenly you can find yourself actually setting yourself back financially. So make sure that you're avoiding the negatives that can come from surrounding yourself with people more successful than you. Number 6, spend your time focusing on cash flow. This is something our channel is dedicated to. Keep in mind that the third step of the 3 C's of proper banking and borrowing is cash flow optimization. How do you maximize what's left over at the end of each month? So you've got to be smart about your investments. Number 6, ultimate financial advice for people under 30 is be smart about your investments and use that to focus on your cash flow. The more disposable income that you have at the end of each month, the more freedom of choice you'll have with your time and your options. So it's incredibly important to be focusing on areas where you can maximize what you get back each month. You can not only maximize the returns, but you can maximize the liquidity, and you're also gaining something on a monthly basis. Make your money work for you. And if you do this properly, you can substantially minimize your tax liabilities along the way. Number 7, become financially knowledgeable, guys. It's said that 20% of the financial equation of success is made up by what you know. The other 80% is what you do with that knowledge. So you have to learn in order to execute. So good intake, great output. Good intake, great output. You've got to make sure you're digesting excellent content. Sources like this channel can be a perfect starting point for people that are in their 20s, getting into their 30s, and really trying to create wealth. Other channels, and 3 that I really like the best myself personally. Number 1, I think you need to engage with Patrick Bet-David's channel, Valuetainment. Fabulous channel, excellent information for people that are getting started in creating wealth. Number 2, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary's channel talks a lot about drive, hustle, strategy, optimization, simplification. And finally, I love Grant Cardone's material. Grant Cardone talks a lot about the grind, the hustle, and sales. I mean, I would say that sales, regardless of your passion, regardless of what industry you want to be in, is going to be critical to your success. So those would be 3 resources that I would steer you towards from a knowledge standpoint. But again, 80% of your financial success is going to come from how you use that information. And that's where your coaches and mentorship needs to come in. Whether you're getting coached by us or you're getting coached by others or a combination of everything, you have to surround yourself with the right team if you want to actually achieve your full potential. It's impossible to expect that you'll know everything yourself or that you can see everything that others can see. At the end of the day, the more sets of impartial eyes you can have on the exact same decision, the more you'll be able to consider every possibility and ultimately end up making the best choice for yourself, both for the short term and the long term. Okay guys, so that's the 7 ultimate pieces of financial advice that I could offer anyone in their 20s that's looking at really maximizing their success, not just through their 20s, but beyond. So regardless of what age you are, this information should be relevant. If you want more great content like this, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button below. Furthermore, if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to the channel. Guys, we're always talking about better ways of banking. We dive into the heart of the mathematics behind some of these concepts. In all of the 120 some odd videos on this channel so far, every single video on there is still relevant today, regardless of when it was posted. Go back in and check some of the stuff that we did years back. Some of the most popular videos will give you a general idea of the scope of this comprehensive information. This is by far the most comprehensive financial information channel or educational channel on YouTube. Yes, there are others that are talking about bits and pieces of what we're teaching. However, nobody that I've seen is tying together every single one of these dots like they need to be connected in order for this to come together in a similar fashion. So make sure that you're subscribed, turn on the bell notifications so that you're alerted every time new videos are announced. And what I'd like to hear from you is, what was the #1 piece of financial advice that you learned growing up? And how has that affected you today? Please go ahead and share that in the comments section below. I'm really curious to see how you would change this list. Guys, thank you again so much for being a part of this community. We want to help you become a cash flower and do everything you can to redistribute the odds against those banks and make the most with your money. So stick around for the next video. Until then, make it a great day today.